Just pick it up. Good to see all of you guys today. Happy Sunday. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to go ahead and we'll get bringing here. A couple things to bring up. I do want to make sure we lift up Bethany for her job search. And Isabel is trying to land some work. So I want to these two.
Megan is no longer in the hospital.
And no longer in a dark room. So headaches are gone.
Yes.
Good. Good.
This is good. This is very good. Well, guys, let's go ahead and we'll pray and we'll get started. All right. Lord, thank you for the rain. Boy, how we needed it. We're grateful for it. Lord, so good to provide that which we need each and every day. Pray that you bless this time. Pray that you would bless Isabel and Bethany with some work and something, Lord, that when they get up in the morning, they're looking forward to go. Something that just is really, if I could put it in the modern day vernacular, Lord, right in their wheelhouse. I pray that you would just bless them with that, which they would really, truly enjoy. Thank you for these young people. I thank you, Lord, for what they do in the workplace, marketplace. Pray that you would just bless them in the study today. Help us to grow. Help us to see from your eyes these important things on mental health. Lord, thank you for this study. Lord, as we close it up today, I pray that you would just help us to find those additional truths that we need for this. Lord, bless you. We ask this in Jesus' name. Really interesting thing that Miss Nikki brought up this morning as we were just kind of sitting here, and I've never really thought about this. Really good thought. The number of people in the Bible that we can point to with mental health issues, we've got one up on the screen that we're fixing to dig into in just a minute. But the one that we rarely ever even consider, Judas. And he followed through with his issue. You know, there was a lot of, I think there was probably a lot of regret, a lot of shame, if you will, sorrow. By the way, can I say this? I want to make something really clear. Every one of us in life have an opportunity to do something really stupid. You get what I'm saying? And you can point at Judas and you can say that was stupid. You can say that was intentional. I don't care what word you use. But he felt it was so egregious to commit suicide. I want you to think about that for just a little bit. Because this is Pomeroy opinion. Does everybody get that? Because I'm fixing to give you Pomeroy opinion right here. I think suicide is one of the most selfish acts that you could ever do in your life. Please do not misunderstand this. I'm not sitting here saying that callously. Do you get that? Okay, that's not what I'm saying. I am saying there's usually ways to work through it. Sometimes we don't want to expend that energy. You know, I'm going to give you a recent issue that is well known in the U.S. Who's my mom? Judd. Naomi Judd. Her mother. Committed suicide, and it was her daughter that
No, it is
found her.
Naomi's mom.
Okay, so daughter found mom, and come to find out, mama was not dead when she was found. And if you think about the difficulties of working through that as a daughter, you just laid a lot on your daughter. Okay, so I just want you to understand, guys, when we look at mental health issues from a biblical perspective, there's nothing new under the sun. Nothing. And when we look at somebody like Judas, wow. Interesting how Judas responded in his situation compared to Peter. There's some food for thought. Did Peter feel bad? Yeah, to the point where he's practically fishing naked, and Jesus found him and had to console him a little bit. You know, Peter thought it was all over, done, and it wasn't. And I think many times we do not give Jesus the opportunity to finish the work. That's a problem. So today we're looking for patterns, and we'll look at Judas a little bit. If we've got time, we'll look at him a little more closely, because there's some similar patterns there in Judas. We're looking for potential triggers. And by the way, whether it's you or somebody that you know, these are things to be aware of. These are things to be alert to. Okay? And just try to be a friend to somebody. And hopefully somebody will try to be a friend to you when you need it. All right? Because if you've never experienced depression or any of those kind of things, those are some dark roads. Those are very dark roads. And they're hard to walk. All right, so I want us to be very cognizant that we need to be alert to what others may be going through. Okay, just had a conversation just 15-20 minutes ago with one of our elderly folks in the church, and I asked her how they were doing, and you know, there's health issues there. It's be alert. Be alert. Let's get into this. Elijah. And Elijah is one of those that we don't think of as a person with mental health issues. And yet, we're going to take a look at 1 Kings chapter 18 and going to 1 Kings 19. So let's do that. 1 Kings 18. 20 to 40, I think we'll take some time to try to work through that if we could. Let's do 2 verses each. My darling, can you kick us off? If you would, please. Verses 20 through 40. We'll just work around.
So Ahab sent unto all the children of Israel, gathered the prophets together unto Mount Carmel. Elijah came unto all the people and said, How long halt ye between two opinions? If the Lord be God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. And the people answered him not.
Then Elijah said to the people, I alone have left the prophet of the Lord, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. Now let them give us 2 oxen, and let them choose 1 ox for themselves, and cut it up, and place it on the wood, but put no fire under it. I will prepare the other ox, and I will not put fire.
I'm fine.
24 and 25 for you.
Then call on the name of your God, and I will call on the name of the Lord. The God who answers by setting fire to the wood is the true God. And all the people agreed. Then Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, You go first, for there are many of you. Choose one of your bulls and prepare it and call on the name of your God, but do not set fire to the wood.
And they took the bull which was given to them, And they dressed it and called on the name of Baal from morning, evening until noon, saying, O Baal, hear us. But there was no voice, nor any that answered. And they leaped upon the altar which was made. And it came to pass at noon that Elijah mocked them and said, crying out loud, God, either he is talking, or he's pursuing, or he is in a journey, or peradventure he sleepeth and must be awake.
So they cried aloud and cut themselves, as was their custom, with knives and lances, until the blood gushed out of them. And when midday was past, they prophesied until the time of the offering of the evening sacrifice. But there was no voice, no one answered, no one paid attention.
Yep, Daniel?
And Elijah said unto all the people, Come near unto me. And all the people came near unto him. And he repaired the altar of the Lord that was broken down. And Elijah took 12 stones according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, unto whom the word of the Lord came, saying, Israel shall be thy name.
Right?
And with the stones he built an altar in the name of the Lord. And he made a trencher on the altar large enough to hold 2 seahs of seed. And he put the wood in order, cut the bull in pieces, and laid it on the wood, and said, Fill 4 water pots with water, and pour it on the burnt sacrifice and on the wood.
Then he said a second time, and they did it a second time. And then he said a third time, and they did it a third time. So the water ran all around the altar. He even filled the trench with water.
At the time of sacrifice, Prophet Elisha stepped forward and prayed, Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Ishmael, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord. Answer me, Lord. Answer me, so these people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again.
Then the fire of the Lord fell and consumed the burnt sacrifice and the wood and the stones and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. And when all the people saw it, they fell on their faces, and they said, The Lord, he is the God. The Lord, he is the God. And Elijah, and unto them, Take the prophets of Baal, let not one of them escape. And they took them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook Kishon, and slew them there. Now, you might wonder, well, Charlie, okay, why did we read that whole thing? Because that has nothing to do with mental health. And you would be exactly right in saying such. That's not the issue. What did Elijah get to do or see in this situation?
He killed some prophets.
Yeah, well,
What?
true. Go before that, though.
Oh, he mocked them.
Oh.
And also to make the
What did he put on that altar?
a bull,
And then did what?
slayed it
And
in pieces.
keep going.
Made put the wood
Did that.
in.
Next. This is the key right here.
Doused it in water.
Doused in water. How many times? 3. That too. There's a whole lot of water going on this thing. And what happened?
I got 3 times.
Yeah,
It is 3. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. You can say it.
Yeah, you're right.
Thank you very much. That's Tom humor for those of you that don't know it. All right. So he got to see God's hand. Because I've got a question for you. Was that normal? Was it normal to sacrifice on an altar? Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Was it normal to sacrifice with water put on it? I want you to understand this. Who commanded that the water should be put on it? Elijah did.
Yeah, that's
God will always do God-sized things. Never forget that principle. God always does God-sized things. So when Elijah says, you know what, y'all go ahead, do your thing. And then he mocked them. Like, oh, poor little Baal. He must be busy. He must be sleeping, taking a nap. You guys should cry louder. I mean, he laid it on. Now, probably not the greatest thing to do. But he did it, and then his God showed up. And we all know what happened. I remember images from Hurricane Andrew. If you've never seen them, guys, you ought to take a look at them. It is awful. Because I'm talking cement pads that are wiped clean. Wiped clean. That's what that altar looked like when God was done. There was nothing left. That's God's hand. Who was part of that? Elijah. So you're saying, Mr. Palmer, what's the big deal? Glad you asked. 1 Kings chapter 19, verses 1 through 4. And it says this. Oh, by the way, when he got done slaying the prophets of Baal, Jezebel was not all that happy. And Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and withal how he had slain all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger unto Elijah, saying, So let the gods do to me and more also, if I make not thy life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. For those of you that do not understand that, that's a direct threat. And when he saw that, he arose and went for his life. I'm sorry. Wow, what did that just say? And when he saw that, he arose and went for his life, and came to Beersheba, which belongeth to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a juniper tree, and he requested what? Well. He's gone from mocking the prophets of Baal and putting God on display to running and asking God to kill him. How do we do that in 24 hours? Like that. And I'll tell you, if I had been in Elijah's shoes, I'd have been very tempted to send the messenger back and say, you know what? We missed her yesterday. Go ahead and tell her to come on. Because who had all the power behind him? Elijah did. So how did we get to a point where we went from that to now running? What was one thing that made him do that? Fear. Absolutely. And guys, this right here will be the biggest contributor to your mental health issues. This. And we're going to see that. Because we talked about John the Baptist. We talked about John the Baptist. Where was John at the time of his questioning of Jesus? Prison. Yep. We talked about Job. What was Job going through? Incredible pain.
What's he going? Yeah, exactly.
Fear. What else caused him to do this?
I would say for Elijah, his fear turned to lack of faith. And I think that's
I
very
would switch
human.
that. I would switch that.
What?
Lack of faith turned him to fear.
Okay. Which is
And-
really hard to understand when you just had this great victory.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So here's another warning, guys. When you do experience something great by God in your life, and you want to go out and find the next body of water to start walking on it, walk on the water, and when you get back to land, remember one thing. It doesn't take long, and that can all get sucked away. And I'm talking the exuberant feeling. Because this all happened real quick. 400 prophets of Baal are slain, and how quick did word get back to Jezebel? It didn't take long.
Those are her people. Those are her prophets.
Lack of faith, and I would agree, I think the lack of faith turned him to fear. What's another contributing factor, do we think?
Lack of self-care.
Okay?
I think he might have been tired.
Well, yeah,
I
too
think
much,
that at that moment he may have been just exhausted. Over,
Maybe lack of rest.
So-
You said self-care.
Yeah, because later on, I don't know if you're going to go to later on or not, but it literally says, he sat down in the thing, he said, let me die, but then an angel touches him and says, get up and eat.
Yep.
Right? He says, hey, you haven't eaten, you need to care for yourself, get up, eat, drink. And then that's when he starts to go, okay, hey, I need to get out of my head.
I want you to remember that because we're going to come back to some of the ways that we can mitigate the issues of mental health. And that is one of them. Hey, good morning, Winston. Okay, so this is really interesting here, what we're seeing with Elijah. True? And I think we've covered quite a bit. So was there a significant change in his life? Yeah, I'm going to say this. In this situation, I don't think there was. If you call the slaying of the 400 prophets of Baal life-changing, yes, that might be major. But was there anything major to him? No. No. I don't think there was major stuff there. Was there any significant physical change? No. There was not. There is one thing that we can point to. We just did. 1, 2, 3. So, how important is it for you to care for yourselves? I've told you guys earlier this year, I think one of the most important things that you guys can do to mitigate the issue of discerning truth is to stay in the Word. If you're staying in the Word, what are you doing? You're going to keep up your faith. If you keep up your faith, you're going to have fear. You shouldn't. It'll help. Let me ask this question. And I'm going to ask this of, how many of you are fearful of the future for this country? And I mean fearful. Any? Okay. That's really interesting. Here's what I'd like you to do. Okay? By the way, I'm angry. I'm angry about it. I'm a person that expects others to do right. That's me. And when they don't, I get irritated. And yes, you can ask Miss Nikki and she will vouch. And especially when I get on the roads of Houston. Okay? So, I want you to think about this. Does God know what is going on in this country? He absolutely does. Is he still sovereign? Yes, he is. Is he still on the throne? Well, if he's sovereign, he's got to be still on the throne. Does he know where you're at? He absolutely knows where you and I are at. Have we read the rest of the story? Revelation. Have we got dark days coming? We do. But here's where you can take some hope. God has you here for such a time as this.
You know, one thing we have to realize, that God didn't give you the spirit of fear. He gave you love, power, and sound mind.
Amen.
And until we start using that mind, you can't blame no one else but yourself. Because if I see someone jumping off a building, that don't mean I have to go jump.
That's right.
See, because we have to understand once we leave this earth, we have to answer to God. And we can't answer for no one else but ourselves. And until we get the understanding and the knowledge that we have to do things according to God's will, regardless, sometimes it sounds silly, but if it's act of God, I guarantee you better do it.
Yes.
You may get talked about, you may get shamed on, but I'd rather be shamed on by a man than God, so that's why everything that he tells me to do, I do it to the best of my ability.
Amen.
And no one is perfect. We're gonna make mistakes down through life, but we have to understand we have to do according to God's word.
Everybody's at a different place in their journey. Darlene, you had something?
Well, I was just going to say here in Elijah's case, there's a lot to talk about Ahab and Jezebel. First off, Ahab married unequally yoked, which caused him a lot of his problems because he himself didn't follow the principles that God had laid down to take a wife. And then she came in and changed the heart of it. And that was why there were certain rules, because she changed the heart of the king and took it on these false prophets. And when over here in 19, when they go after Elijah runs, and God comes to him and tells him he's going to appoint for king. So he's afraid of Jezebel right now. And God's saying, I've anointed this person. But then he tells him, I have reserved 7,000 men that have not bowed the knee to Baal. So he's letting him know that even though the country's in this really bad position, God still has it.
Yeah,
God still has it.
and Elijah, I mean, if you think about it, how did this all start out? What did it sound like the children of Israel were doing when this whole thing started? Read those first few verses there, 20, 21, and 22. Read those. And then tell me how this kind of all started out. What you got, Chauncey?
It started off with just disobedience and confusion.
And I'm not sure it was confusion, but definitely disobedience. And I'll tell you, the one thing that comes to my mind, this is one of those, and by the way, I want to warn you, you cannot ride the fence with God. Can I just say that's painful? You're neither hot nor cold. You're vomit to him. Chauncey?
The reason why I'm saying that is look at verse 21. It says, and Elijah came to all the people and said, how long will you falter between two opinions?
Good.
Yes.
So what is?
So hold on.
Yep.
So that's why I'm saying it's disobedience and confusion. Because the enemy likes to bring confusion onto
What were the children of Israel doing? There was no confusion in this. This is why I might disagree on that point. And this happens with us, guys. We'll sit there and we'll get mixed up in sin, and we're thinking we're what? Getting away with it.
See, I'm going to go a different. I'm kind of going to lean with Chauncey on this one. I'm going to tell you why. Where were the people in charge were Ahab and Jezebel? And what was Jezebel doing? She was promoting her agenda. What do the people of the nation normally do? They follow what the king does. He was killing the prophets that disagreed with him. So when God said, I have reserved 7,000 men, what were all those other people doing? They're following what the king and the queen are doing.
Did they have righteous kings before this?
Yes.
Yes, they did. Did they understand how it was supposed to operate?
Yeah.
Watch this. So if I know that, how can I live in this country?
Yes, but you have to look at the history of they're always doing this.
Yeah.
They're always
Mm-hmm.
falling away from the grace of God. And so my point I'm trying to say is there's a lot of people here who have not made the personal commitment. The 7,000 men that did not bow their knee.
I think I'm gonna go with Brother Charlie's point on this. He needs backup. I gotta bring him back. So what I read from here is like, how long are you between two options, right? And then that's like what I think with most Christians of today, they want to be a part of this world, so they got their hand in the cookie jar. They're like, I want to praise God, so they're like this, right? They're in between.
But is that confusion?
I wouldn't say that's confusion because they know what they're doing because yes, they know what's right. So if knowing what's right, if I know what's right and I see someone doing it wrong, I'm gonna correct them. Why? Because I know it's right.
This is the
What?
Joshua moment. Choose ye this day whom ye will serve.
Sean?
If it's, I would say if it was straight confusion, they wouldn't
They wouldn't know.
know what's
Amen.
right, what's
There you go.
They wouldn't know what's.
I see where you guys are coming from. Don't misunderstand me. My feeling is, and I think this is true of us today in this country, don't back up from being a Christian.
Amen.
Stand firm. Pause for effect. Stand firm. Because we've got too many people that are doing what? They're compromising. And what is it making Christians look like? Say it again. Weak. We've got enough to stand by. Hang on, Chauncey. Unmute.
I think, okay, so I think everybody has a point here.
Yep.
But the confusion is when they have the one hand here and the one, because I know people who are Christians who are voting for democratic social issues, and I keep thinking, how can you do that? And I've had them look at me and say, how can you do that? How can you call yourself a Christian and do what you're doing? And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Chauncey,
And to her point, but also to this
original.
religious point. Because remember, America was made on Christian values.
Yep.
You know? So how in the world did Buddhism come in? How in the world Islam came in? And then now you got these people out here saying, well, I don't know what God to serve. When y'all go and witness to people, there are people saying, well, what do I know what's true now? There's all these isms.
So I would ask this question. Did people know who to serve at the time that Jesus was living? There wasn't any doubt. Why? Because when he showed up on the scene, who did you know was there? And who did you know was right? So I just, do you get where I'm coming from today on this? I mean, it's an issue, guys, of keep your nose in this book. That's what you've got to do. Because let's say that Chauncey and Nikki are right. It's an issue of confusion. Where do I sort the confusion?
In the Word.
In the Word.
In the Word. They were not holding to the Word of God. Therefore, they were confused.
So we've got the children of Israel trying to mix in sin here, and Elijah's saying, straighten up. And did he help straighten it up? Yes, and then he ran.
And then the key word, two opinions.
2 views. By the way, we've got more than that.
Yeah, we have more than that today, but in that time.
Absolutely.
That's why the Bible tell you to study.
Yes.
That's
You know,
right.
Study and see, because the world is made up of so much of wickedness today, and if we rely upon the White House, and we will always be behind the 8 ball.
Sure.
You know, see, because we have gotten so far away from God and we wonder why things happen today. The Bible is fulfilling itself, you know. He said man is gonna become lovers of himself.
Mm-hmm.
And that is definitely showing today, you know. People really don't realize who wakes them up in the morning now. You know, they think they wake up on their own. America have gotten too materialist.
You're right.
Everything is mine, you know, it's never ours, you know, it's what I can do, you know, it's not what we can do, you know, and that's why you have to be very careful pertaining to the church that you get involved with, because a lot of churches does not teach the word. It may sound good to you, you know, but once you get out in the street, you ain't got nothing to fight with, you know. You know, you just living on a good feeling, you know. And after that good feeling is gone, you know, you gone.
Jonah chapter 4, verses 1 through 3. My darling, would you please?
Yes, but I have to get the
I know.
Jonah.
Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi. That's a wrap. Where's Josh? Come on. That's the only rap I can do. The last books of the Old Testament. It's the only rap and it's only half a verse. It's not even a real verse.
What'd you say it was? I'm like Obadiah, Jonah, right there.
4, chapter 4. I'm having fun with you.
What verse?
Yeah.
Or
1 through 3. 1 to 3.
But it displeased Jonah exceedingly, and he was very angry. And he prayed unto the Lord and said, I pray thee, O Lord, was not this my saying when I was yet in my country? Therefore I fled before unto Tarshish. For I knew that thou art a gracious God and merciful. I knew you were gracious and merciful, and that made me mad. And of great kindness and repentance of the evil. Therefore now, O Lord, take, I beseech thee, my life from me. For it is better for me to die than to live.
This is unreal. Can I put this in a modern day context for you? Is it okay? This is us, and I have no idea which political leaning you have. I know where I'm at. I am conservative. So this is sitting there going, God, take all those wicked progressives and liberals and just hang them by their toenails. Oh, you're not going to do that. God, why are you not going to do that?
Why are you
They deserve that.
Why are you being merciful?
Why are you being merciful? Why? Guys, look. This can be hard. This can be real hard. Every person that has been born has been created in the image of God. First and foremost. Jesus said, I am not willing that any should perish. Not even Adam Schiff. Not Nancy Pelosi. Not Kamala Harris. Not Joe Biden. Not Donald Trump.
You need the verses for this?
Yeah. Look, he is not willing that any should perish. And this is what happened, by the way. I do this. So I pray those imprecatory prayers. I was praying one the other night. Lord, let them eat themselves from the inside out. But the end goal is what? It's Christ. That's what it is. Now, if somebody is just downright going to be evil, and we probably would have put Saul of Tarsus in there. Hello? And Jesus said, I got different plans for you. Why don't you come and meet with me? And he did. Blinded him for 3 days, as if to make sure he needed to get his attention. And he got it. Oh, did he get it? By the way, can God still do that kind of thing today? He absolutely can. We have to be very careful that we don't write off people, if I could say it that way. You know, who's beyond redemption? There's the question. Do you want, Better question, do you want to be the person that makes the judgment when they're beyond redemption? There's the question.
They used to have a old saying that says, sweep around your own front door before you try to sweep around mine. So when we try to talk about someone and try to put people down, that is not God. God said, judge you not. You know? So when you go around judging people, because you never know what's inside that person's heart, you never know what's inside that person's mind. A lot of people just don't know. And that's why I fear for people when they know something and are afraid to tell the truth. You know? Because I always tell people, if you don't want to know the truth, don't ask me. You know? See, because I'm not going to die and leave this earth and miss my blessing just by keeping my mouth closed. You know? So we are here to help one another, you know. And if we refuse to do that, you know, why are we here? Why are we here? You know. So, you know, like I said, we have a lot of selfish people in the world. And it's a leaving.
Good points. So, how about this? Was there a significant change in Jonah's life?
Belly of the whales on land.
That was pretty significant. I mean, he got a second crack at it, is what he got. By the way, I've always said this, and I want to make this clear too. God is a God of second chances and third chances and fourth chances. And if he's really patient, fifth chances, maybe sixth, he is long suffering. He will wait.
That's one reason I love what it says in Joel chapter 2. Steve Gaines, who followed Major John to Belgium years ago, preached a message entitled God's Wake Up Call. And he used this text where it says, "Yet even now declares the Lord, return to me with all your heart, and with fasting, weeping, and mourning, and rend your heart, not your garments. Now return to the Lord your God, for he is gracious and compassionate, slow to anger, and abounding in loving kindness, and relenting of evil. Who knows whether he will not turn and relent and leave a blessing behind him, even a grain offering and a drink offering to the Lord your God."
Good verses. Good verses. So we did have some changes.
I do want to say here that
Yep.
talking about the mercy and grace of the Lord, I believe that Nineveh 30 years later was destroyed, the judgment. But I want you to see in verse 11 here, chapter 4, that God said, should I not spare Nineveh, that great city, wherein are more than 64,000 persons that cannot discern between their right hand and their left hand? And he's talking about the children. So in that 30 years, how many of them, because they had repented, not, some of them actually went on to serve God, and probably were spared out of that. And I think even if it was 10 people, I think that just how merciful and gracious God is in that scenario. But you're going on about the changes in his life, but what is his attitude?
Well, yeah, we'll talk about that.
So
in a
I did
moment.
want to bring up one other significant change in his life. That was his expectations. So when he went
Perfect
to it,
timing.
he had the expectation of Nineveh's getting wiped out. He's like, sweet, I know how this is going to go. And then that changed. And he's like, but the plan.
I'm gonna work that in a slightly different phrase. And this is where we need to be careful. Can you say maybe that he set himself up as God?
Because he's thinking they deserve it?
Yep. And he's upset because it's not working the way he thinks it should work. Yeah. And look, that was, I'm going to call that that wasn't intentional. That was indirect. But it happened. And I think Justin is exactly right. The expectations were, y'all are going to get wiped out. I'm just coming to let you know. And then it didn't happen. By the way, what do you think would have been the feeling if he knew that that wasn't going to happen? Well, he ran. And then he was so mad. What did he ask for? Just kill me. Verse 3, right? What does it say? Verse 3? Therefore now, Lord, yep, I beseech you, take my life from me. Yep.
And you know what's so crazy is that, the Lord asked him to do that, and the entire time we can say that in his heart, he didn't really want to do that.
That very well could be. Very well could be.
Because he didn't want to go to Nineveh because they're probably just going to kill him.
And that's ultimately what it is. That's ultimately what it is. By the way, guys, and I'm going to say this, you won't hear this uttered around here very much. I'm letting you know that I believe that the persecution of Christians in this country is going to get hot and heavy. To the point where you better be ready to lay your life on the line for it. That's a Pomeroy opinion, and I want to state again, you're probably not going to hear that said around here much. In the end days, what happens to the heat on Christians? It gets turned up. How do you think we're going to separate wheat and tares? Yeah. Pure stuff, that stays. Dross comes to the top. So that's just Pomeroy opinion. All right, don't want you walking out of here down in the mouth, because remember, we know what the rest of the story is. But I think we should be prepared for that kind of thing.
I want to encourage you to practice that, right? So I came from Seattle, very liberal.
Oh my!
There.
God bless you.
When Roe v. Wade was overturned, I got a text from a friend I've known for 10 years. We worked together. They were my mentor at work, and they said, "Hey, what are your opinions on Roe v. Wade?" And I know where she stands on it. And I was like, "Well, I think it was a good overturn. It's my Christian values. And I stood my ground and said, hey, I think it's good. I think it's for the power impact of the states, and I think that saving lives because of our Christian values." And she then responded with, "Thank you for being honest with me, but please use my number." And I knew that was coming.
Yes.
But it was one of those moments where I sat there going, I know where she's going with this.
Mm-hmm.
Do I save this friendship? Or do I hold firm to the truth?
Those are
And it's so
She's not
weird.
real choices.
Her friendship was based on you agreeing with her. And this is all new today. It's not like, it's if you don't agree with me, you must hate me. You don't agree with homosexuality, you're a phobia. You have a phobia. If you don't agree, then you're hateful. This is all new.
And so it's those little moments that build your confidence for that big moment when someone's holding the gun to your head, being like, denounce your God or denounce your life.
You're right.
Good word, Chauncey.
And that's why it's important to compromise.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, everybody's a friend until Christ shows up. That's why his name is above everybody's name.
Never forget this.
Y'all can be fooled for years on end.
Yep.
But then somebody finds out that you're Christian, they're Catholic, and just like that, your friendship down the water. Or just because you're just Christian and you're holding to the word, holding to what Scripture says, and you're just reminding someone of what the word says and they're supposed to be Christian, no more.
Jesus is the greatest divider of all time.
Do you think people would stand on their values on that Catholic and Christian thing? One of my dad's cousins, he married a Catholic and he converted to Catholicism after he married her.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Hence the reason we do apologetics here. What time we got?
It's almost 10 a.m.
Oh, we got another hour. Great. All right. So, was there any significant physical change for Jonah?
I mean, the environment being
I tell you, that was nasty. That was nasty. I do not speak from experience, but I can only imagine what that environment was like.
He's very stubborn.
He's extremely stubborn.
He's a very stubborn person. He's very stubborn, and I think where you can go with this in his life is that is attitude. We're really talking about an attitude.
But here's a word of encouragement. Some of us, I'll just point to it, where stubbornness is a badge. Good news, God will even use you in your stupid stubbornness. Right? So that's the beauty of Scripture, is that God is willing to use anybody. He always uses broken people. That's cool. That's cool. All right. Let's tackle this final point. Anything else that we can point to? I think we've covered Jonah pretty good here. So, when you take a look at all this, I want you to compare some of what we talked about to what the Mayo Clinic says. The Mayo Clinic says stressful life situations, such as financial problems, by the way, that's probably number 2, maybe number 1 about what will tear your marriage up. That. Number 1. Yep. A loved one's death or divorce. So, by the way, if you've got a friend that just lost a loved one, you might want to get the radar up for some mental health challenges, some depression, some anxiety, and you get the idea. Ongoing chronic medical conditions such as diabetes. And by the way, diabetes to me is a weak one.
Divorce.
Huh?
Skip divorce.
Did I?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Divorce.
I did
He
not.
just really doesn't want to talk.
Yeah, my bad.
It's really not up there.
Divorce can.
Well, and I
It'll throw you right in a tizzy. Well,
very
I'm sorry. Let me reword that. For a person that's still committed in the relationship, that can throw you in a tailspin. Yep. Ongoing chronic medical conditions such as diabetes. By the way, if you do not have the right attitude when living with a chronic condition, you are really subject to mental health challenges. Can you say cerebral palsy? Can you say Crohn's disease? And I could go on. Brain damage. So who do you think we've got our eyes on right now?
You got brain damage?
No, she had a concussion.
She had a concussion.
No,
What?
it wasn't even a concussion. It was a trauma-induced migraine.
No way.
Yeah,
That's
I
all
didn't
it
have
was.
a concussion.
Well, praise the Lord, you
That's
didn't.
all
Didn't.
I know.
Licensed counselor.
Yeah. Hey, guys. What does the NFL say about that?
Mm-hmm.
Not a big deal.
Not a big deal. That's what they say.
Rub the ball.
That's a big deal. They can come back and play in the week.
Yeah. Traumatic experiences such as military combat or assault. I'll tell you, I think the greatest disservice this country ever did was to those that came back from Vietnam. That was horrendous. Even now, but even more so then, because they came back and they were spit on, they were mocked, and so on and so forth. There was no reason for that. That was not their doing. Pomeroy opinion. And you can run and tell anybody you want. I'll gladly debate them on. Use of alcohol, recreational drugs, not cool. Childhood history of abuse or neglect. There is more of this in this country than we can even remotely think about. Few friends or few healthy relationships. Previous mental illness.
I'd also say too many.
Too many what?
Too many friends.
Too many friends?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
What? Tell me why. I've got my ideas why. You tell me why.
Because you have to devote so much to it.
Okay, that's good.
And then it also becomes a game of picking and choosing who the favorites are, and then you develop a lot of other social aspects to it that really shouldn't be necessary.
Good thought.
I would argue that was very few healthy relationships. Whereas you might have hundreds of friends, but how many of them are healthy relationships?
Good point.
And let me just, I want to add to this, because we talking about mental health. In all these situations, remember, every thought that you think causes a chemical reaction. If you think of something sad, somebody died, a chemical reaction happens and you start feeling sad and depressed. If something you have a memory that's joyous and then you get this happy feeling, those are all chemicals in your brain. So when you're going through like a child history of abuse, like you're developing thought patterns that are designed to instigate your feelings or give you those feelings that you have. And then you start building on that because you just don't know.
Here's some additional complications: family conflicts, relationship difficulties, social isolation. This is not good. If you are spending time alone, you should not be doing that. I'm sorry. If you're spending an excessive amount of time alone, you should not be doing it. So if you get around a person and you feel the natural inclination to just withdraw and go somewhere by yourself, that's a radar item. Yeah.
And that's
You do not have that issue.
And that's different from being introverted, where introverts will hang out with others for like, I get my feeling from being. That's different. That's healthy.
Yep.
It's when you're like, okay, I'm gonna go hang out with someone. Then you get there, you're like, yeah, I want me to take every chance.
Yep. Problems with tobacco, alcohol, other drugs. So, next week.
Can I bring up something?
Yes.
Okay, so I want you to understand something with Elijah, Job, and Jonah. They went through all those things. I just want to die. But God showed up and was very gracious. So even though in the midst of their turmoil, God's grace showed up on the scene. So you can always remember that God understands where you're going and why you're feeling what you're feeling, but His grace is sufficient. His grace is sufficient.
Number one thing that you've taken out of the study as a whole, Mr. Clint.
One more thought.
Oh, yes.
Consider this.
Yes.
I'm sorry. But, do you know how easy it is to kill yourself?
Oh, there's a multitude of ways, yes.
Like, honestly, the fact that you just grab a knife and how sharp it is, and then just slash your wrist, it is absolutely easy. It's the cycle of misery that's the worst part. The killing yourself is actually not that bad. It's the cycle of, I can't kill myself. It's what I have to do. I must go through. I must keep going. That's where the biggest misery is. Misery that the fact that when you try to kill yourself and it doesn't actually succeed because your internal body doesn't want to die, it sucks. Because then you feel yourself as a bigger victim.
Interesting.
This is moments where I turn to Job, where Job 2:10 says, "Shall eat some good from God, but also troubles." Right, where he says, "Hey, yeah, I had good times, and now I'm having troubles, but God's letting this happen for me." Right, and there are times in my life where I've been at that point where I go, you know what, this sucks. This hurts worse than dying, but I need to accept that. And then I also think of Jesus in the garden the night before he died, where he said, "Lord, if there's a way to take this cup away from me," I mean, Jesus didn't necessarily want to go across like this, but let it will be done. And I think about that in the terms of business, where in the moments where you're at the lowest, and you go, this hurts me worse. I want this taken away, not my life. But Lord, let your will be done if it's your will to happen. Otherwise, and those are the thoughts and things that were embedded in me. Issues there that really helped me through this time. So yes, it's the worst pain over. But I look at those in the Bible who went through very similar or that pain and how to be
Good.
And one thing really important for being with the older people is you can always say, but on the other side. On the other side. God carries you through the midst of your heartache, but on the other side.
Key takeaway out of the whole study, not just today, but out of the whole study. Megan, you ready?
What?
But you keep
The big key takeaway, the one thing you've learned that really sticks out.
God's always there no matter what.
Good. Winston?
God's in control whether you choose to see it or not.
Ooh, good thought.
You're in good company with.
A lot of biblical people.
Yeah.
And reputed biblical people. Good work. You've only had one day.
1 weekend.
Yeah.
It's like the fear and lack of faith will drive you to that.
Interesting. Good. Ryan?
Stay in the word no matter how hard it
Stay
is.
in the Word. Stay in the Word. Johnson?
Continue to seek after God, no matter the circumstance. And no matter the circumstance, always give him praise.
Amen.
Mr. Plant?
I would have to say my biggest thing for the study is the fact, no matter what I've been through or whatever's been through, it's not just for me, it's for the glory of God and also to help others.
Excellent. Excellent. Isabel?
The moment you let fear in is the moment you let your crazy thoughts run wild.
Oh,
No crazy thoughts.
wow. Good word. Did he just call you
No,
crazy?
that's actually, that's really, really true. That's really true.
God is sovereign over all.
God is sovereign.
I actually agree with Isabel because when you allow, and you're going to be faced with it, it's important that you're faced with it so God can guide you through it. But when you're faced with the fear and the doubts and the circumstances are overwhelming, your thoughts can take you to some very dark places. And if you can just tell yourself, I need to think differently, I need to think differently, I need to think differently, God can get you through it.
I'm with Melissa. When you look at the people of the Bible, and we're talking pretty important people, they went through stuff that we are subject to going through. Appreciate you being here. I have no idea what we're going to do next week.
Megan, who's on? Anybody on?
Oh, Josh was on.
Okay.
Josh, you there?
Yes.
Is he? Oh, we don't have the speaker on, do we? Ask him what his big key takeaway is.
What was your takeaway? Okay. He said he's gonna put it in the chat.
That'd be great. Okay, so we are done with our mental health study. I hope that was helpful to you. Just to reiterate, I want to make this clear one more time. I am not a mental health professional. Nothing that I said will be used against me in a court of law, because I'm not one of those people. But I'm hoping that we gave you some things that were helpful to understand what to look for, how to mitigate it. Get in the Word, stay with friends, be encouraged, don't let fear in. Those are very helpful. You will probably at some point in your life go through difficult times mentally. The most complex organ that you have in your body is right between your ears. You're not going to figure it out. You're not going to. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. Lord, we thank you for this day. Thank you for this time. Pray that you bless our young people. Lord, for those that are traveling, I pray that you watch over them. Lord, I just ask that you would help us to be mindful of the things that we've learned in this study, to use them. And I really appreciate, Lord, what Prince said. For your honor and your glory. Lord, we love you. Thank you for your word. We ask this in Jesus' name. God bless you guys. Have a wonderful morning.